My cousin Hiro sent a picture to our family group chat, a daring snapshot of a high-profile celebrity. His message said, "Meet my girlfriend Luna." That night, the family chat was on fire. Grandpa jumped in. "That's my grandson for you." Grandma responded, "Hiro, you've made us proud." "Bringing a celeb into the family," my aunt commented. "Some folks here must be green with envy." I was scrolling through the chat on my phone, lounging on the hotel bed, when suddenly a slim, porcelain hand gripped my waist. Luna looked at me softly and asked, "Are you taking me home to meet your parents for New Year's this year?" On our way back for the new year, Hiro's BMW and my Toyota crossed paths at the village entrance. Hiro leaned out of his car, whistling. "Well, if it isn't Mike, how long has that old clunker of yours been on the road? This cheap ride guzzles gas and drives like crap. A total waste of money," he mocked. "Not like my BMW, barely 60 grand. It's all about showing up in style." A group of locals who had been hanging nearby quickly gathered to watch. Among them were my grandparents, aunt, uncle, and my parents. One relative, practically glowing with admiration, praised him. "Hiro, you're living the dream, driving such a nice car." Another relative chimed in. "Exactly, this guy's been sharp since he was a kid. Not like my son, who couldn't dream of driving something like that." Everyone joined in, cheering Hiro on while he soaked up the attention. My aunt and uncle wore proud smiles, practically beaming. Grandpa gave me a look, muttering irritably, "Too bad our family only thrived in one branch." Grandma sighed. "Oh, to think they grew up in the same household. Yet the difference is so vast." My aunt and uncle smiled even wider, casting smug looks at my parents, who hung their heads, looking ashamed and awkward. Right then, Hiro tried to ease the tension. "Grandpa, Grandma, don't be too hard on him. Mike is just a low-level employee with no house and no girlfriend, always at everyone's beck and call. Being able to afford an old Toyota is already quite an achievement for him." Hearing this, Grandpa got even angrier and scolded my father in front of everyone. "I told you not to send him to college, but you insisted. Then he went on to grad school. All that education for what? Just to become someone's servant. Look at Hiro. He didn't even finish elementary school and still drives a BMW. Now, that's a life of destiny, but you're Mike. He just wasn't born with that kind of luck." Dad's face turned red, then pale. Growing up, our family wasn't well off, and with my grandparents always favoring my uncle's side, they opposed my going to school every step of the way. Dad had to bear immense financial and emotional pressure to put me through grad school. And even now, Grandpa still criticizes him as though he's some old-fashioned patriarch. Why should I tolerate this? Not only have they given no support as elders, but they've also held us back with endless nagging and criticism. Just thinking about it made my blood boil. Dad is good in so many ways, but he's too blindly loyal. No matter what his old man says, he always nods, never questioning right from wrong. No wonder my uncle's family always acts superior. Right then, Hiro interrupted. "Mike, mind moving your car? I've got a few high-profile events to get to, and I'm running short on time." He raised his wrist dramatically, the oversized watch face gleaming in the sunlight. I replied casually, "Cousin, your car is pretty valuable. Better not scratch it." He waved dismissively. "It's just a car. Even if it were totaled, I wouldn't blink an eye. Cars are like women, meant to be replaced every few months." The crowd murmured in astonishment. Hiro, who'd been showing off since he was a kid, had truly mastered his act. I rolled down my window and said, "Good to know. I thought I saw a scratch on the back of your car and was going to mention it." "What? Where?" Hiro's cool demeanor vanished as he scrambled out of the car, pacing from front to back, inspecting every inch. He hunched over like a dried-up shrimp, his eyes glued to the car, mumbling, "There's nothing. Where is it? I don't see it." Feigning regret, I said, "Oh, I must have been mistaken." He finally caught on and stomped his foot, shouting, "Damn it, you tricked me!" I hit the gas, leaving him fuming as my aunt and uncle's faces turned beet red in the rearview mirror. It was a sight to behold. Since Hiro's public announcement of his relationship in the family chat, the group had been buzzing with curious members asking for photos and juicy details. Tonight, he posted another series of sultry photos of his girlfriend, flooding the chat with exaggerated reactions. "Wow, she's stunning. My grandson really knows how to pick 'em. Our daughter-in-law is a real star. What a perfect match. A couple made in heaven." The screen was filled with well wishes and red envelopes, which I eagerly scrambled to claim. Only after the excitement began to die down did I cautiously ask, "Are these just artsy shots from the internet? Or do you have any candid photos?" As soon as I sent the message, the chat fell completely silent. After a long pause, Hiro replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. It's normal for some people to be jealous, especially those who've been single for so long they drool over a sewer rat. Know your place. Don't get ideas above your station. There's no chance a toad like you could get a swan. The words were venomous. It seemed Hero had some long-standing resentment toward me, perhaps because of our earlier encounter or because I hadn't fawned over him like everyone else. Either way, his message was meant as an attack, and I wasn't about to take it lying down. Just as I was ready to clap back, I found myself muted by the admin. Really? So that's how we're playing it. Grandpa technically held the admin title, but he barely understood how to use a smartphone. It was clearly Hero's handiwork. Pathetic. Using my dad's account, I wrote in the group, "Hero, be sure to bring her to the family dinner on New Year's Eve. We'd all love to meet her in person. Your uncle's red envelope is already prepared." Then I turned the message into a red envelope, scattering 50 copies in the chat so that everyone would see it. The screen filled with a rain of red envelopes. Hero had no choice but to respond, albeit begrudgingly. Fine, she'll be there. Some people are going to end up with egg on their face. Such big talk. I hadn't even lifted a finger, and I could already imagine the embarrassment on his face when his bluff was called. I really wish I could wake you up with a splash of pee, only if it's yellow enough. The next day, I went shopping with my mom at a newly opened department store in the city. By coincidence, we ran into Hero and my aunt right at the entrance. Hero was decked out in a sharp suit, his hair slicked back in a greasy pompadour. Spotting us, he swaggered over with an air of superiority. "This isn't a place you can afford. The wholesale market in the old part of town is more your style." He scoffed, feigning indignation. My aunt chimed in. Now, Hero, why can't country folk get a glimpse of the city? Just looking doesn't cost a thing." Mom looked embarrassed, shifting on her feet, unsure whether to leave or stay. With a smirk, I asked, "So, what are you planning to buy today, Auntie? It'd be great if you could give us humble country folk a tour of the finer things." She lifted her chin with a haughty smile. "My son's getting me a Gucci bag. It's a luxury brand from abroad, one some people could never afford in a lifetime." I replied, "All the more reason for us to see it." With that, I took my mom's arm and we followed Hero and my aunt into the store. The Gucci boutique dominated the center of the floor, its massive logo displayed prominently. The store was lavishly decorated for the holiday, exuding luxury. Seeing the line stretching out the door, my mom tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Maybe we should just go, it's too much." A security guard approached, annoyed. "Are you lining up or what? Don't block the entrance." Hero sneered, "Know your place. Not everyone's got the right to just walk in here." Mom's face flushed with embarrassment, and she tried to turn away. At that moment, a sales associate in a tight, body-hugging dress and flawless makeup emerged from the store. She lit up when she saw me and greeted me warmly. "Mr. Lee, what a surprise. You should have told us you were coming so we could have prepared for you." I nudged my mom forward and said, "Just out shopping with my mom. Could you help her pick something nice?" The associate eagerly ushered my mom in, saying, "Please come in. Feel free to try anything you like." Hero was so stunned his jaw practically hit the floor, and he instinctively followed us inside. The associate raised her hand, stopping him. "Sir, please join the line in the back." Outraged, he pointed at me and asked, "Why doesn't he have to wait?" The associate replied, completely composed, "Mr. Lee is one of our esteemed VIP clients, so he's entitled to our highest level of service." Hero scoffed. "Him? A VIP? Impossible, he's just a broke nobody." Ignoring his protests, the associate escorted my mom to the spacious VIP lounge. Meanwhile, Hero's face turned as black as coal. I sipped the afternoon tea provided by the staff, watching as Mom tried on clothes. The sales associate brought out the latest seasonal styles. At first, Mom felt a little self-conscious, but gradually she began to relax and enjoy herself. After trying on clothes, she moved on to shoes, with the associate kneeling to explain the details of each shoe's material and design. My aunt's glare at Mom was practically venomous. Half an hour later, I took out a black card and signaled the associate to ring up the purchase. As we exited the VIP room, we spotted Hero and my aunt, who were still in the crowded section, browsing the bags, folding my arms. I approached them and asked, "Still haven't found one you like?" My aunt turned, and seeing Mom holding several branded bags, her expression changed instantly. The associate picked up a black and gold Gucci clutch from the display and held it up for my aunt, saying, "Ma'am, this one would look perfect on you. Consider it." My aunt glanced at Hero with anticipation. Hero checked the price tag and, looking embarrassed, stammered, "Ah, it's way too dull for you." The associate recommended a few other trendy colors, but he dismissed each one. Eventually, he settled on a tiny round clutch and, in an overconfident tone, told the associate, "This one will do. Wrap it up." I couldn't help blurting out, "Isn't this one also black? But there's a difference. This one's $1,000. That one's 10,000." The crowd around us fell silent. Hero shot me a murderous look. I pointed to the price tag. "But there's a difference. This one's $1,000. That one's 10,000." Everyone turned to look at Hero, whose expression looked like he wanted to devour me. Unfazed, I continued, "Actually, could you wrap that black and gold Gucci clutch up? My mom would look great with it." The associate eagerly agreed, throwing a not-so-subtle glance in Hero's direction. Hero glared at me, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. I took my mom's arm and we left Gucci laden with bags. Mom looked pleased, but also a bit worried. She asked, "Son, these things aren't cheap. You must have spent quite a bit, right?" I replied casually, "Not really." It wasn't bravado. After graduation, I threw myself into venture capital. With sharp instincts and the help of some mentors, I rose quickly and now held assets worth millions. But to my family back home, I was just an average worker, a guy who rented a modest apartment for $3,000 a month and drove a Toyota worth about 10 grand. The reason? If Grandpa or my uncle's family found out, they'd definitely try every trick in the book to leech off me. I wasn't worried about refusing them, but Dad, loyal to a fault, would never stand up to Grandpa's favoritism, no matter how blatant. If Dad asked me to yield, I honestly don't know what I'd do. To avoid that, I kept my success a secret from even my parents. However, I didn't hold back when it came to showing them my gratitude. Over the years, I renovated our family home, bought new furniture and appliances, got Dad an imported German massage chair for his back, sent them on annual vacations, and provided them with top-notch health insurance. They sometimes wondered where I got all the money, but I always brushed it off, managing to keep them in the dark. That's why every time Hero put on airs in front of me, I let him play his part. After all, true strength comes from within, while only the insecure feel the need to flaunt their wealth. But Hero didn't understand that. Fuming, he caught up to me and sneered, "You must be going all out to put on this show. Bet you maxed out your credit card." Seeing his indignant expression, I felt nothing but disdain. I replied, "I have no idea what you're talking about. And as for credit cards, I don't use them. Living beyond my means isn't my style." With a scoff, he retorted, "Oh please, without credit, where'd you get all that money? Blowing tens of thousands in just a few minutes. Quit acting like you're some rich guy when you're just a broke loser." Exasperated, I turned to leave, but he only got louder, playing it cool. Let's see if you don't sneak back to return all that stuff later. Just some advice, trying to be someone you're not. Only works if you've got the luck to back it up." Even from far away, his voice carried, lingering unpleasantly in the air. Soon, New Year's Eve dinner arrived. My grandparents' 3 brothers, 2 sons, 2 daughters, and several elder relatives from the village filled the house, 3 tables packed with dozens of people. As the gathering warmed up, Hero bustled around, offering cigarettes, drinks, and business cards to each elder, igniting a storm of flattery. "Amazing! Hero's come so far, he even has business cards," my aunt gushed. "Exactly, not just anyone gets to print business cards," added another aunt. Grandma replied, "Hero's always been the brightest of the kids. He's the only one who can earn a living." My aunt chimed in, "Just a few days ago, he bought me a Gucci bag for over $1,000. I didn't even want it, but he insisted. This kid really doesn't know how to budget." My second aunt sighed, "Gucci? Wow. My daughter says her boss's wife carries that brand. Hero is such a filial son," added another relative. Looking at the business card in my hand, I noticed it read, "Three Bulls Influencer Agency. Renowned live streamer. 3 Bulls." Why did that name sound so familiar? I texted my assistant to check up on the company. My assistant replied, "Mr. Lee, it seems you've forgotten your own investments. You funded 3 Bulls last year. You're the company's biggest shareholder." "Oh, that's right." I vaguely recalled something about it. I sent him a photo of Hero's business card. My assistant confirmed that he'd been hired in a recent batch of young streamers. Curious, I asked how he was doing. My assistant replied with a laughing emoji and said, "This guy's all show with no substance. He loves putting on a performance during his streams, but his audience is dwindling fast, and his sales figures are atrocious. The company's planning to let him go after the new year." Then, after a pause, he asked, "Mr. Lee, is this relative of yours? Should I let his supervisor know?" "No need," I replied. "Business is business." "Got it," he responded. I turned off my phone and looked up, only to meet my second aunt's curious gaze. My second aunt glanced at me, looking a bit suspicious. She asked, "Mike, everyone's chatting, but why are you still working?" Just as I was about to explain, Hero chimed in. Typical of a 24/7 wage slave, always ready to respond to the boss. Terrified of being fired at any moment. Grandma gently scolded, "You should put work aside, it's New Year's Eve." After all, Hero added, "Grandma, don't bother. We're talking about big things like buying houses and cars. Mike can't afford a house, so it's only natural he'd use work as an excuse to hide his embarrassment." With that, he pulled a red booklet from his briefcase and slapped it onto the table. My second aunt gasped, "Hero, you bought a house." My first aunt flipped through the deed, her eyes lighting up. "It's a property in Splendid Gardens, the city's top school district. I hear it's about 25,000 per square meter. And you bought 120 square meters? What a generous move." My second uncle chimed in, "If only my kid had half the drive Hero has." Third uncle agreed, "Yeah, with children this accomplished, you can look forward to a comfortable retirement." Grandpa said, "All those years of spoiling him weren't for nothing." My aunt and uncle looked as if they were floating on clouds, their faces glowing with pride. Seizing the moment, my second uncle asked, "Hero, that mortgage must cost a pretty penny each month, right?" With a carefree laugh, my cousin replied, "It's just over 10,000 a month, peanuts compared to my monthly income." The crowd erupted with a new round of praise. Hero shot me a smug look and asked, "So Mike, when do you plan on buying a house?" "A house isn't a necessity for me right now. Renting covers my needs," I replied calmly. At this, Grandpa's face darkened. He scolded, "What kind of man can't afford a house? You're a disgrace." Grandma sighed, "If Mike had half Hero's intelligence, we elders could rest easy," my aunt added. "Didn't Mike go to graduate school? How can he not afford a house?" My first aunt chimed in, "What good is all that schooling if he can't make money?" Second aunt added, "How will you get married or raise a child without a house? Are you planning to have your wife and kid live in a rented apartment?" Hero looked down on me with a smug smile, saying, "Second aunt, Mike doesn't even have a girlfriend. Where's he going to get a wife or kids?" Suddenly, a thought struck me. "Weren't you going to introduce your girlfriend tonight?" I asked. "The dinner's half over. When will she show up?" Hero was caught off guard, stammering, "What's the rush? She might have been held up with something, then give her a call and check on her. You wouldn't want anything to happen to her on the way," I said hesitantly. Hero pulled out his phone and dialed. Everyone watched him intently, eagerly imagining a glamorous entrance from the celebrity girlfriend. "Hello?" His tone was cautious. From the other end, a cold voice responded briefly, and then the call abruptly ended. Hero put his phone away and explained, "She had a last-minute brand event and couldn't make it." Grandpa, visibly displeased, grumbled, "Just canceling like that. Doesn't she care about us elders?" My second aunt soothed, "Well, she's a big star. A bit of attitude is understandable." Grandpa added, "Sure, she's a star, but our Hero is a renowned influencer. The nerve of her. She's not even officially part of the family yet, and already she's acting high and mighty. What's going to happen once they're married?" Others joined in, trying to calm Grandpa down. While Hero sat in silence, his head lowered just then, a lively voice echoed from the entrance. "Hey, everyone, I'm here." Everyone turned toward the door. There stood Luna herself, the nationally adored actress. She was radiant, with perfectly applied makeup and an elegant, long cashmere coat. The entire room let out a collective gasp. A few younger relatives, already giddy, pulled out their phones to snap photos. The atmosphere transformed from tense to electrifying. People murmured excitedly, "She's so fair, she practically glows. Hero hit the jackpot. I can't believe my niece-in-law is a celebrity. I'm posting this on social media right now. She's even prettier in person. Her looks are unreal." Relatives scrambled to offer congratulations to my aunt and uncle, who were so pleased they could barely keep their eyes open. Meanwhile, Hero's face looked like he'd just swallowed something bitter. My second aunt nudged him, whispering, "Well, what are you waiting for? Go welcome her." In a daze, Hero slowly approached the door. Luna, what are you doing here?" Luna looked at him, her expression bewildered, and delivered a line that left everyone stunned. "Who are you?" For a moment, all eyes were on Hero. Someone murmured, "Wait, isn't she supposed to be his girlfriend? Why does it seem like she doesn't know him at all?" Hero heard it too, his face flushed with embarrassment that he could barely lift his head. But struggling to save face, he stammered, "Ah, you forgot. We met before. You came to my live stream to support me." Luna, seemingly uninterested, continued scanning the room until her eyes landed on me. Instantly, she broke into a radiant smile, cutting Hero off mid-sentence as she threw herself into my arms. This move left our relatives utterly stunned, especially Hero, who looked at me with both jealousy and hatred. I gently pushed Luna back, frowning. "Didn't I tell you not to come?" She looked up at me, her voice soft. I missed you. Don't be mad. I shook my head, saying, do you realize the consequences of this? She replied, I know, but I don't care. I love you, and I'm willing to give up my career for a family with you. Her voice was so sincere and open that it struck a chord deep within me. Luna and I had met when we were both struggling nobodies. Back then, I was a fresh graduate scraping by, while she was a small-time actress hustling from one gig to the next. We supported each other through thick and thin. Later, I found success in business first, and wanting to help her reach her dreams, I suggested starting a talent agency for her, but she refused. She wanted to succeed on her own, one careful step at a time. And she did. Her hard work and talent propelled her to stardom, making her one of the industry's rising stars. She wanted to make our relationship public, to marry and start a family. But I discouraged her. I knew the impact marriage would have on a woman in her position. She had worked too hard to give it all up, but I underestimated her love for me. She truly was ready to give it all up. I pulled her into a tight embrace, both of us oblivious to the stares around us. My middle school-aged niece whispered tearfully, oh my gosh, this is just like a romance drama. Her younger brother sighed wistfully. I wish I were the main character. After a brief silence, I released Luna and led her over to introduce her to my parents. Mom was so nervous she didn't know what to do, glancing from Dad to me, completely at a loss. Luna stepped forward on her own and hugged her, bringing tears to Mom's eyes. She turned to scold me. You little rascal, dating such a wonderful girl and you didn't say a word, making us worry about you for nothing. Both of my aunts quickly joined in with praise. See, Mike is the one with real potential, quietly handling everything on his own. Exactly, it takes someone special to marry a superstar. Mike clearly has what it takes. Meanwhile, Grandpa sipped his drink in silence, his face dark. Grandma looked like she wanted to say something, but after glancing at Grandpa, held back. My cousin, being the favored grandson, was their pride and joy, and they didn't want to hurt his feelings. My uncle and aunt looked deflated, having lost their earlier confidence. As for Hero, his gaze stuck to Luna like glue, as if he was about to start drooling. When his eyes met mine, they were full of resentment. It was clear to everyone that he'd been putting on a front, claiming an unlikely connection as a girlfriend. The adults' favoritism showed in a very straightforward way. None of them were willing to acknowledge me anymore. All those who had fawned over him and his family now flocked around Luna, asking questions, requesting autographs, and insisting on photos. They even demanded I share our love story. As the banquet drew to a close, Hero, who'd been silent, suddenly spoke up. Mike, with such a beautiful girlfriend, you're not going to make her live in a rental, are you? I met his challenging gaze and replied calmly, don't worry, whatever other girls have, my girlfriend won't be lacking. He sneered, oh please, with your salary, you dare say that? In our family, no real man would let a woman support him. Don't go ruining the family name by mooching off her. Seeing his rudeness escalating, a suited businessman walked past the hotel lobby just then, catching Hero's eye. He called out, Mr. Kim, what a surprise, didn't expect to see you here. Hero practically ran over, his voice breaking with excitement as he greeted him. Mr. Kim gave a polite nod, exchanged a few words, and was about to leave, but Hero didn't want to let him slip away so easily. Practically dragging him over, he insisted, Mr. Kim, please, just a moment. My family greatly admires you, and we hope to rely on your support in the future. Mr. Kim reluctantly took the offered glass, exchanged a few more formalities, but suddenly noticed me in the corner of the room. Setting down his glass, he walked over. To be honest, I didn't recognize him. So when he shook my hand, stammering with gratitude, I felt distinctly uncomfortable. Mr. Lee, what a privilege to meet you here, he said. I managed to pull my hand free and asked, and you are? He blinked, then forced a smile and explained, I'm Daniel Kim from Three Bulls Company. Earlier this year, I had the honor of hosting you during your visit. I imagine, with your busy schedule, you wouldn't remember me. I nodded. I don't have much of an impression. Hero looked utterly confused. He pulled Daniel aside and sneered, Mr. Kim, you must be mistaken. He's just a lowly employee. What, Mr. Lee? Daniel cut him off impatiently. Are you suggesting my eyesight isn't as good as yours? Hero faltered, trying to backtrack. No, that's not what I meant. You misunderstand, Daniel replied. Well, let me clarify. Mr. Lee here is a top-tier investment mogul and the largest shareholder of our company. In other words, he's both your boss and mine, so I suggest you watch your tone. What? Hero looked from me to Daniel, his face defeated. All this time he'd looked down on me, taking every opportunity to insult me and put me down. Who would have thought that one day, not only would I have a girlfriend he could only dream of, but I'd also be his boss's boss? I gave him a faint smile, savoring the moment. From then on, things were simple. Daniel's unintended revelation of my true identity turned everything around. I had wealth, status, and a celebrity girlfriend. A walking success story. Relatives rushed over to cozy up to me, pouring out compliments and asking how I'd been. Even my parents became objects of admiration. No matter how much Grandpa and Grandma disapproved of our family, they wouldn't turn down the prospect of wealth. Hero restrained his resentment, now showering me with flattery. Being well aware of the stakes, he understood how the dynamics had changed. Even my uncle and aunt, who had never gotten along with my parents, now turned around to congratulate them, praising their blessed and capable son. Money, as they say, can indeed transform things. Looking at how my family had been treated in the past, I couldn't help but feel a pang of irony. Perhaps in this world, poverty really is the root of all shame. After the holiday, the younger family members began returning to the city for work. I lingered a bit longer to discuss wedding plans with my parents, but only a couple of days after Hero left in his BMW, he drove back in a hurry. He rushed into our house and immediately dropped to his knees. "Mike, please talk to my supervisor. Tell him not to fire me. I just paid the down payment for my house. If I lose my job, how will I keep up with the mortgage?" I shook my head. "I'm just an investor. I don't get involved in daily operations. Talking to me won't help." He insisted, "Come on, you're the big boss. Whether someone stays or goes is up to you, isn't it?" Unable to reason with him, I turned to go to my room, but he clung to my clothes, sobbing. "Mike, please don't hold a grudge over the past. I treated you like a brother. That's why I teased you. Don't be so petty." "Okay, we're family. If you won't help me, who will?" I asked him to get up, but he only clung to me more firmly. "If you don't help me, I'll stay here on my knees until I die." "Then, go ahead," I replied, leaving him there as I went to play online games with my friends. Faint wails echoed from outside, but when I went out half an hour later for water, he was nowhere in sight. I knew, though, that with his family's persistence, this was far from over. Sure enough, that evening, my grandparents, uncle, and aunt came over. They filled our living room, encircling me. Grandpa aimed his words at Dad, saying, "This is the son you've raised, one who doesn't understand loyalty or family obligations. He'd rather help outsiders than his own flesh and blood." Grandma took a more sentimental approach. "You're his uncle. You've watched him grow up. If you don't help him, who will? All it would take is a word from you. Can you really stand by and watch him struggle?" My aunt hugged my mom, sniffing. "Our hero is a good kid, just too honest. He must have unknowingly offended someone at work, or he wouldn't be let go like this." After everyone had spoken, both my parents looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to make a decision. I showed them my earlier conversation with my assistant. It clearly stated, "This guy is all talk, constantly putting on a show during his streams. His fan base is shrinking fast, his sales numbers are terrible. The company plans to cut him after the new year." Parents often see their children through a rose-tinted lens. My aunt, who had just praised her son's honesty, fell silent after reading it. I thought they'd finally let the matter go, but a parent's love knows no limits. Grandpa and Grandma were as biased as ever, so when they couldn't sway me, they set to work on my dad. He droned on about filial piety and family honor, making me yawn. "Dad, I'm going to bed," I said, leaving Grandpa fuming, his face red with indignation. The next morning, Dad, looking worried, pleaded with me. "Son, if it's not too much trouble, why don't you help your cousin out?" I knew Dad's dutiful heart had been stirred up by Grandpa again, so I firmly said, "Dad, leaving aside how this would violate company policy, even if it were entirely permissible, are we obligated to help them? Think about all the times Uncle's family has treated us badly. Every challenge we've faced, they've either turned a blind eye or actively made it worse. Have they ever shown us kindness? If they weren't desperate now, would you hear a single good word from them?" My words seemed to strike a chord with Dad, who fell silent, deep in thought. I trusted him to be rational and hoped he wouldn't let family ties hold him hostage yet again. But Grandpa and the rest weren't about to give up. They came over every few days, attempting to wear him down. Realizing that their persistence would drive Dad to the brink, I took matters into my own hands. I booked tickets to Sanya and, right after the Lantern Festival, whisked my parents off to Hainan for a holiday. A few days later, Uncle called, asking why no one was home. I casually replied, "We're here in Sanya, enjoying the beach." He practically ground his back teeth to dust. Over a month went by without incident, until one day, Dad got a call from Grandma. She claimed that Grandpa had suffered a stroke and was in the hospital. Dad panicked, packing his things to rush home. I tried to stop him, reminding him how fine Grandpa had been before we left, showing no signs of illness. But Dad insisted, "Your grandma told me herself. Why would she lie about something so serious?" Knowing it was useless to argue, Mom and I accompanied Dad back to our hometown. But as soon as we entered the house, Dad froze in disbelief. There was Grandpa sitting comfortably in the living room smoking a cigarette. Sitting with him were Hero and his parents. "Dad, you're all right?" Dad asked in shock. Grandpa shot him a sideways glance, blowing out a puff of smoke. "What? You wanted me to be sick? Are you only happy if I'm on my deathbed?" "Dad, how can you say that?" "I'd never wish harm on you," Dad replied. Grandpa snorted. "Everyone else has been worrying themselves sick over here, and you're off on a beach vacation. You've sure learned how to live it up." Dad started to explain, but Grandpa motioned to Hero, who pulled a set of documents from a drawer and slapped them onto the table in front of Dad. Dad glanced at them and asked, "What is this?" Grandpa replied, "A property transfer agreement. Once Mike signs this, you can stop worrying about Hero's job." As Dad stared in disbelief, Hero smirked and clarified, "I did some digging. Mike has assets in the billions. As his older cousin, taking $5 million off his hands isn't asking too much." Finally, the meaning of it all sank in. Dad looked at Hero's smug face and tore the papers into shreds, shouting, "Are you insane? My son's hard-earned money is his own. Not a single penny of it is yours." With that, Dad turned to leave. At this, Grandpa roared, slamming a hand on the table so hard that dust fell from the shelves. "You ingrate! If you don't sign those papers today, don't consider yourself my son." Dad responded with a cold laugh, his voice steady and resolute. "This will be the last time I ever call you Dad. You were never a good father, and you're certainly not fit to be one." He paused at the door, looking back once more. "I expected to feel sad, but I only feel a sense of relief. Isn't that interesting? There's no pain worse than realizing you're unwanted by your parents. But looking back, I realize you've never really cared. We should have severed ties a long time ago. While we were in Sanya, I'd secretly bought a seaside villa for my parents. I'd planned to tell them about it sooner, but I was worried Dad would be too attached to the past to make the move. Now, with Dad having taken the step to break free, it seemed the right time. I handed them the keys to their new home. On the day we left town, my second uncle came over to convince Dad, saying, "The old man's just waiting for you to apologize. Just say you're sorry and move on." Dad chuckled and replied, "Why don't you tell him to apologize to me?" "Not that it matters. I won't be coming back." It's often said that parents and children spend their lives waiting for each other to apologize. But I felt Dad had moved beyond needing that. Eventually, Luna and I married with my parents as our witnesses. We were truly happy, and Luna didn't have to give up her career. In the early days, she faced setbacks as fans turned away and criticized her. I reminded her not to get trapped by the ups and downs, but to stay grounded and focused on her craft. Not long after, her career saw a revival. She won multiple awards and earned a loyal fan base of dedicated supporters. I haven't seen Hero's family since, but every now and then, I hear bits of news about them. After Hero was fired, he couldn't find another high-paying job. His new home was repossessed, auctioned at a loss, and he eventually gave up on work altogether, spending his days gaming. Not long after, he got hooked on online gambling, borrowing from shady lenders to finance his habit. His BMW was sold to cover his debts, and eventually his parents had to sell their home as well. Now they're all packed into Grandpa and Grandma's old house. My uncle quit his job to monitor Hero, taking shifts with my aunt to make sure he didn't gamble. Sometime later, Mom told me that Grandpa had finally called Dad, hoping they could reconcile. Dad, however, turned him down. He had let go of the past, though he still sent monthly support payments to Grandpa and Grandma, just enough to meet the legal minimum. Now, that's the only thing left.